the OCG Fam Show. Last time we talked about what to do when you start to see your leaves yellowing on your plants. Let's talk about what to do long term for it. Hey there! I'm from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCG Fam Show. To you, my YouTube buddies, what's going on? Let me know in the comments and we'll talk about it after the show. Right now, let's just get into the show. Emergency 51. Originally, they just called it Emergency, then it became Emergency 51. Well, back before the turn of this century, I used to watch this show every day when I was a kid after school, and bear with me, it imports to what we're talking about here. So on the show, you'd see this scene where some moron was like hang gliding or riding a dirt bike or doing some stupid shit, and they would get injured. And then these two guys, John and Roy would roll out of this little pickup truck with a big box on the back full of medical stuff. And they get there and they, oh my God, this guy's a mess. He's all, you know. And so they get this little crusty old mobile phone kind of thing, like a radio, like, hey, and they call the hospital and they talk to this fella, Robert Fuller. I don't remember his name on the show. Side note, my mother-in-law has a massive crush on this dude to this day. Anyway, he'd say, well, what's the situation? They were like, well, you know, his blood pressure's low, his pulse is thready, guy's not in good shape. And he'd say, well, you got to get him the lactated ringers. You got to IV him with the lactated ringers, which is, I gather, some sort of thing to replace fluids when you're bleeding or something. But last show, we talked about when you start to see yellowing in your leaves, which is kind of the same thing. You get in there, and what you do is you see the plant's not great. You got to get it stabilized before you can transport it. Medical lingo. So you use the foliar feeding, but how do you tell what's going on? What do you do once you get them to the hospital? How do you get this person healed, get them back on track? How do you do the same thing with your plant? And that's what Scott and I talked about in the last Viewer Questions episode, is how to get past that, figure out what's going on, and move on to getting the plant back to healthy again. So I'd like you to watch the clip, and I'll talk to you after. So when you see your plant, like, it starts to be, it's dark green and then it starts kind of fading to a lighter green, what are you seeing there?
I mean, that's when I would take a quick slurry test, and if your slurry numbers start going off, like my pH is now 6.9, what that's telling me is that your pH is starting to climb up for some reason, and nitrogen's no longer available because the pH scale has gone out of range. In that case, you figure, you know, I'll just do a couple of feedings at a lower pH, maybe give it a flush with some Gaia to kind of bring the pH back down into range where the nitrogen's more available. If everything's in range, then the plants are just consuming, your parts per million are probably low in the slurry test. So the plants are starting to starve a little bit in the newer growth, which you get that lighter green appearance in the foliage.
Lighter green means they're hungry.
Lighter green means, yeah, they need more nutrition.
They're either out of whack with their pH or they're just not getting enough food.
Yeah, and the slurry is going to tell you both. And the nice thing about foliar feeding is you do your slurry, and if the ppms are low and the pH is perfect, then you know you just need to feed more. In the meantime, you can be foliar feeding to feed the tops of that plant so they're breeding up before you even start root feeding them to get them back to breed.
Okay, what do you think of that? Informative, entertaining, helpful? Have you dealt with this situation in the past? Have you got your plants back from being kind of sketchy to being healthy again? Let's talk about that in the comments and about anything you'd like to talk going forward. One show note, we talked about doing an episode of the Viewer Questions and then talking at length about every single nutrient in the line. People are asking about that. When are we going to do that? We've kind of started doing that already because we realized after we said we wanted to do Medusa and Gaia to get started that we really needed to start with the soil and with one shot. And that's the two episodes we've done, if you look back a little bit, where we started along that path. But next Viewer Questions episode, we will go in depth into Gaia and Medusa and go on forward with all the nutrients. So that's show note and show for today. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. The OCG Fam Show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you tomorrow.